And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome, and thanks for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey, and I am your host. This week, I have the privilege of talking with Congressman Tim Burchett. Tim represents Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, which covers Knoxville, Tennessee, and Knox County, and all or at least part of 7 other counties in East Tennessee. He's been serving in Congress now since 2019, after he previously served as mayor of Knox County. As a resident of East Tennessee myself, around here, Tim is well known and respected, and one of the rare politicians that is pretty much universally liked. I've had the chance to speak to people in the area, and everyone has always had good things to say about Tim. In Congress, he's been a steady voice for freedom and justice, voting against the Further Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2020, agreeing with me and I think the vast majority of Americans that the government has been covering up information about UFO technology and recovered craft. He opposed the Limit, Save, Grow Act in 2023 and openly opposed corrupt globalist George Soros. There are few politicians that truly fight for their constituents. Tim Burchett is one of them. But before I welcome Congressman Burchett to the show, let's do a quick roundup of some of this week's big news stories. This week, in a very interesting exchange on social media platform X that has since gone viral, X user James Fishback posted the case for a DOGE dividend, in which he suggested to Elon Musk that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and the federal government issue a tax refund check to every taxpayer, stating that based on the savings already found by instituting cuts across the federal government by DOGE, that 20% of those savings be returned to the taxpayers. President Trump responded to Fishback's post and suggestion and said that he is actually considering doing just that and taking Fishback's suggestion and giving every American taxpayer a refund check. This is definitely a story I think everyone will be watching closely. More to come on this. Also this week, 2 of President Trump's cabinet picks were confirmed: much maligned FBI Director Kash Patel and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Patel, whom along with Health and Human Services Director RFK Jr., I personally was concerned will be blocked by Democrats and congressional rhinos, was very narrowly confirmed by a margin of 51-49, with Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine joining all 47 Democrats in voting no. Patel said in a press conference after his swearing-in ceremony on Friday that there will be accountability within the FBI and outside the FBI, and we will do it through rigorous constitutional oversight starting this weekend. Patel has already ordered a major redeployment of FBI agents in the field in his first days on the job. New U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, in her first days in office, has fired the chief legal counsel of the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Pamela Hicks. This comes after President Trump has ordered the firing of all Biden-era U.S. attorneys, with Trump stating that, quote, "We must clean house immediately and restore confidence, and America's golden age must have a fair justice system." Bondi has also said that she has former millionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein's client list, quote, "sitting on my desk right now, along with files from the murders of former President John F. Kennedy and civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. I think the American people on both sides of the aisle have been holding their collective breath, eagerly awaiting the, hopefully, release of all these files, especially the infamous Epstein client list. More on this also to come in the coming weeks. Earlier this week, Delta Flight 4819, which was traveling from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Toronto, Canada, flipped upside down and burst into flames on Monday as the recent string of plane crashes continues. Delta announced on Wednesday that they would be willing to give $30,000 to every passenger on the plane in a no-strings-attached offer that does not affect rights, according to a Delta spokesperson. The plane was carrying 76 passengers and 4 crew members, and 21 people were injured as a result, thankfully with no fatalities. Both the Transportation Safety Board of Canada and the U.S. National Transportation Board are still investigating, and the exact cause of the crash is still unknown. New Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman said Friday that he has asked a court to reject the Menendez brothers' request for a new trial. Former DA George Gascon had previously cited new evidence in a letter suggested that the brothers may have been abused by their father and suggested that they should be entitled to a new trial. If you remember, the Menendez brothers, Eric and Lyle, were convicted of murdering their parents, Josie and Mary Louise Menendez, at their Beverly Hills home in 1989, in what was then one of the biggest and most highly publicized murder trials of the time. There is a documentary on Netflix about the Menendez brothers for those of you that are interested in learning more about the case. In international news this week, Hamas announced late Friday the names of 6 living Israeli hostages they plan to release this weekend. This comes after the release of some dead hostages earlier this week, which has ignited a firestorm of controversy and allegations of misidentification of some of the bodies released into Israeli custody, which Israel has called a cruel and malicious violation of the ceasefire agreement. This has since raised concerns about the future of the fragile ceasefire deal that is still in its beginning phases. Hamas said in a statement that a mix-up of remains may have occurred after Israel bombed the area where both the Palestinians and Israeli hostages were present. So that's what's happening around the country and around the world this week. At this time, I would like to welcome Congressman Tim Burchett to the show. Welcome, Congressman. I'm honored to have you on.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure being here with you.
I have to start by saying I feel like it's a great time to be an American.
Yeah.
President Trump's back in office, and this time he means business. In his first few weeks in office, he has already made a major impact towards securing our borders. He's eliminated DEI and the woke agenda from the federal government and our schools, withdrawn the U.S. from the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accords, kicked men out of women's sports, showing foreign countries that he means business, imposing tariffs on countries that refuse to comply with newly implemented economic and trade mandates. And on a local level, for us here in East Tennessee, he's visited the devastation from Hurricane Helene that occurred here in East Tennessee and our neighbors in Western North Carolina that have been completely ignored by the Biden administration. How are you feeling about the current state of our country and the direction we're heading under President Trump's leadership?
Oh, I'm encouraged by the direction we're headed, but I still, Congress is going to have to pass laws to make these presidential citations. You're going to have to make them permanent because the next president can just undo them with a swipe of a pen. So I think we better be very cautious, and I think we better move at a fast pace because Congress will lose its guts. It'll start cutting into their own gravy train, and they're not going to like that. They'll get a few calls from back home, and I didn't sign up for this kind of stuff, and they'll lose their nerve. And that's where we're at as a country, I'm afraid.
I understand. I agree 100%. You've been a longtime supporter of President Trump. First of all, congratulations on being selected to work with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, by President Trump. How does it feel knowing he has total trust and confidence in you to help slash wasteful government spending and reduce the size of the federal government?
Well, President Trump has been nice to me ever since I met him when I was Knox County mayor, and he complimented me on my win and by the percentage I got, and and he was just a little bit about him. It's the stuff you don't see on the cameras, but he stopped. My little girl Isabel was tiny then, and she was jumping around, and her sock had gotten caught. It fallen down in her boot. And I've got this great picture of her and President Trump leaning down. And he said, "What's wrong, Isabel?" And she said, "My sock's caught in my boot, Mr. Trump." And he said, "Well, honey, you better get that out of there." And he just went straight granddad mode. And it was very uncharacteristic of politicians because generally those things, I don't know if you've ever been to them. You know, these people pay big money to be backstage or wherever, and they
Right. Meet and
meet
greet
the
type thing.
candidate, you know, and do the handshake, get the picture. 30 seconds later, you're off out the door. And it wasn't like that at all. And I told my wife, I said, "What'd you think, honey?" And I said, "Well, I said, I think he's got a shot because he's genuine about what's going on and around him. And um and I've just seen him time and time again. I've been in the White House with him, and he takes time out for somebody. He drives the Secret Service crazy when he pull when he runs over there to say hello to a bunch of police officers or firemen or veterans or something. And that's just it's uncalculated. It's not a political move. It's just him. And I don't want him teaching my daughter's Sunday school class, but he's great as a president, and the terrorists are afraid of him, and that's why you're seeing peace has got a chance at breaking out, and the economy's turning around, and people are pitching a fit right now, and all they're doing is attacking him and Elon Musk. And the truth is that they don't. They're not attacking the message. Like I tweeted about this morning on my X account at Tim Burchett. I said that all these protesters, ask some of these protesters why they're in favor of $10 million to go to Mozambique for circumcisions. And those are the kind of things that we're paying. Americans, Tennesseans in particular, we pay 50% or more in taxes. If you figure state, federal, and local, and all the regulations that are added on to hidden tax, like in gasoline or food or whatever, and to see our money being sent to Central America to provide sex change operations for LGBTQ comics for kids in our state departments pumping out this garbage. We ought to be promoting the two great things that America brings to the table: capitalism and democracy.
Amen.
And that's not. And for some reason, Jeff, we don't do that. And so we've got to write the course, and we've got a very good opportunity right here. And I warn people, though, the House is going to pass something and the Senate's going to pass something totally different. And they're both going to look conservative, and they're both going to blame the other body, and we'll go back to our old sinful ways. So let's get off this victory lap. Let's get to work.
Absolutely. Very well said. So what will your role be within DOGE, and what do you like to accomplish now and in the future?
Well, the committee, I'm on a committee, and it's Marjorie Taylor Greene chairs it. And I'm just going to continue being a watchdog and pointing out things. I pointed out some things in our first committee meeting, and the left, all they did was attack Elon and President Trump. So I pointed that out, and I went on with my points. And we've got to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Currently, I have a bill to deal with part of it, $40 million that we know of every week we're sending to the Taliban, a terrorist organization. Rather, they'll hate us for free. We don't need to be sending them any money to prompt them or to pay them. So we've got our work cut out for us. And fraud, waste, and abuse is just rampant. And you're seeing all this stuff, those things I pointed out, but you're going to see it much greater level when we get to education, much, much greater level when we get to the Pentagon and our military. Everybody wants, well, not everybody, but most people, I would say, want a strong military. But, I think the American public would be horrified to find out that millions upon millions of dollars of projects are just mothballed the day they're produced. And the only reason they're producing them is because they're in powerful legislators' districts. A lot of these weapon systems have been antiquated, and we've got to do something about it.
Well, you guys are working hard to at least make a difference, so we appreciate that. You mentioned committees. The House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, DOGE. How on earth do you have time to be on all these committees?
Well, everybody's on one committee, and some people are on two. I'm just, I told somebody, I said, I show up at the meeting sober, so I guess they figure I'll show up and I'll show I'm not a drinker or partier. Uh, um, Gosh, I came to DC to work. I'm not there for a photo op, or I get a lot of those because I speak my mind.
Right.
But we're losing our country, brother. I mean, $36 trillion in debt, and we have no plan, either party, to pay it back. And I told Marjorie the other day, we were talking, and I said, I said, everybody's pointing the finger at the Democrats. I'm worried about in the room there with the Republicans, because the Republicans all stick together on this DOGE stuff. We'll clean house. The problem is they won't.
Plenty of rhinos out there too, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're going to leverage it against something else that they need, and then saving money in one hand and then spending it with the other is not saving money. That's exactly what you're going to see us do. We're going to save a bunch of money, and then we're going to turn right around and give it to the war pimps at the Pentagon.
I saw this. I saw was reading yesterday about the DOGE found this budget line with $4.7 trillion in payments that's untraceable. Can you give us any more info about that? That just blew my mind when I saw that.
I don't know the specifics there, but it just goes right into everything else, and that's part of the reason they're doing these lawsuits against DOGE and stopping it, so they can get rid of their paper trail.
Absolutely.
You will see a lot of lawsuits, or people that will money that goes right back into the pockets of congressmen, and then when they get stuck, they're not loyal to anybody. They will squeal like nobody's business. So I would assume that's going to be a very dangerous situation.
Right. All right. It's a tough question here, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
It's all right.
There's been so much controversy surrounding January 6th and especially the 2020 election. Do you think the 2020 election was stolen? And do you think there's anything we could have done differently regarding January 6th?
Well, on January 6th, just so your viewers will know, I was the very last member of the House of Representatives to leave the House floor. I stayed there to fight.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I have the pictures to prove it. But I believe that I know of about 7 or 8 states, things were done wrong. The way the federal law reads is the only way you adjust elections is through your state legislature. So not some judge, not some county court clerk that decides to move a polling place, or some election official is allowed to do that. And they did that. That's where those elections were stolen. So in those instances, they were. Now in Tennessee, I don't feel like it was. I think in Tennessee, we had a pretty clean, Trey Hargett's the Secretary of State, and he runs a pretty dadgum tight ship. And I always tell people, they say, well, what in Tennessee, this, that? And I say, well, point it out to me and I'll find out. And there's nothing.
Yeah, I never heard anything about ballot harvesting or anything like that.
No.
Not a single case in Tennessee that I've heard anything about.
Well, let me tell you about ballot harvesting. It's legal in some states. We better get in that game. If it's legal, we better, we can sit there and say, oh, we're not going to dirty our hands to it, and we'll be back in the minority. We better start educating ourselves to the rules of the game. If we know the rules, I think we can win. But if we don't know the rules, we'll get beat every time. And I think some shady stuff was going on in those areas where they put cardboard up and ballots came in and things like that. And the only way you're going to do that is paper ballot and then have some confirmation. But it's still very difficult. Yeah, it's still very difficult. And
I heard about all these dead voters, supposedly, too, the people that were voting that have been long deceased. And you hear about these things, of course, as regular citizens like me, I never get to see any of that. But there was a whole lot made about all that, too. So,
100%. And they'll continue to make those claims, but you got to prove it. And, hearsay, I saw this, I saw that, and there's no documentation of that. Is not, that just doesn't work. So I would submit to you that when people say that, show me, as the young people say, show me the receipts. and when you see a picture of something, you don't know when it was taken or when, you need it dated and those things. You've got to do some documentation on this stuff, and it can't just be I heard, because that just gets you into trouble. Because what happens is you got legitimate cases of thievery going on, and then somebody will show you something that is easily disproven, and it just and it hurts the whole cause.
Absolutely. So you've been serving Tennessee and our country now for over 29 years, since 1995. Did I get that right?
Elected in 94. So yeah.
94. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Is there anything in all your years of public service that you would do differently looking back?
Probably not. Probably not. I've made some mistakes. Yeah, I made a bunch of mistakes. I'm human. I do that quite often.
We all do.
But overall, there's not a whole lot of Tim Burchett's in Congress, brother. I didn't
Agreed.
I didn't come for money. I didn't sell my soul. And
Agreed. It's one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you, because you're one of the good ones. So appreciate what you're doing.
But there's a lot of people up there that that there's almost a sense of entitlement to them, and they have a posse and they go places, and I sleep in my office at night. I got a little cushion I put on my couch, and most nights I'm there at the desk eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we don't come from money, and it's very expensive to live up there, and it's very unsafe. And so there's a lot of security issues that I'm greatly concerned about, and for good reason. I won't go into all that, but yeah.
How much longer do you want to continue to serve the great people of Tennessee and our country? And what are your thoughts on term limits for members of Congress?
Yeah, I told somebody, I said, I was for term limits when I got elected, but I think we ought to study it for a good long while. Jokingly, of course. I co-sponsored the bill, or sponsored in the House, the Ted Cruz's term limits bill, and I have one myself that I float every year, but it never goes anywhere. Ultimately, the public's going to have to do better than 25% of the eligible people to vote. You got to start throwing some of these knuckleheads out, for lack of a better word.
Right. So I've asked you all the usual political questions I'm sure you hear all the time. Can you tell us what you'd like to do in your spare time when you get a break from Congress?
Well, I live here on a little farm, and I fix a lot of fences, literally and figuratively. I shovel a lot of manure, literally and figuratively. I make things. That skateboard right
I
there.
just noticed in your skateboard there.
I'm working on a process to do that, and I invent things. I write stuff and little songs and jingles all the time. I don't do anything with them. I just stick them, and I write. And I'm working on a TV show in my mind, but it'll never go anywhere. But it allows me to escape a little bit at night when I'm alone in my office, because I miss my girls very much, my wife and daughter. So that's the one downside to this whole job, is I'm away from them quite a bit.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Does your wife and daughter come to DC and spend any time with you when you're up there? Or I guess it's kind of hard when you're in session, isn't it?
No, a lot of people do it, but a lot of people come for money. They have a place to stay, and if we do, we got to rent a motel, and it's out of my pocket. It's just incredibly expensive, and I can't afford to do that very often. We do on special occasions and things, but and there's always the security concerns that I have for
Absolutely.
good reason. So, and it's just a little different now than it used to be.
Very true. All right, I know you're a big Vols fan, like I am. What's going to be the Vols record this year in football? Did they make the college football playoffs, and did they repeat in baseball and win another natty? And what's the basketball team going to finish out this year? What's your thought on the Vol sports going forward?
I think they're all three of them are going to end strong. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And the basketball team got off to a good start, and they've stumbled a little bit, but I'm a big fan of the coach. The football team those guys love that coach, and they play well. And if we get a couple breaks, I think we are in some serious contention. Of course, baseball. I don't know.
Tony's done an amazing job with that team.
Yeah, and he's great, and he's popular, and he can recruit. And if I looked like him, I'd be the next U.S. senator from Tennessee.
Yeah, I think the football Vols, they just need a couple good wide receivers, and I think that's going to set them over the top. That's
Yeah.
just watching them. I think they're just getting a little one dimensional with the run game. I just think if they just have one or two that those big play receivers to kind of open it up for Nico, I think that's gonna change everything. So hopefully they can get a couple good recruits in there. So
I hope so. I really do. I hope this paying these players doesn't ruin the sport. I'm afraid it's coming close to it. Player can just pick up and move year to year, and
right, the transfer portals kind of changed everything too.
It has completely.
Well, Congressman, I know you don't have a lot of time, so it's been an honor talking with you. I'm sure the MAGA patriots like myself are all excited for the future and what you'll be doing with DOGE. And unfortunately, there's another side of politics, and that's the radical left. As a Christian, I try to look at different perspectives and be kind and understanding of others and their views, even though I'm almost always disagree with those views.
You don't have to give in to them. You can disagree. You don't have to be disagreeable. I'll close on one thing, if that's okay. I'll tell you a story. One night, the elections weren't going very well for us. I think it was the night Bill Clinton won. And I mean, he was legitimately a draft dodger. George Bush, he'd been shot down in the Pacific by the Japanese. And my dad fought the Japanese in the Pacific. Those guns behind me are guns that he took off of dead Japanese soldiers that he'd killed. And so, 18, 19 years old, saved the world. And I always remember Daddy saying the prayer that night. He said, Lord, please don't let us lose our country. And that was his prayer. And I thought, wow, there's a combat veteran, guy that's in the Marine Corps in the Pacific, 1st Marine Division, Peleliu, Okinawa. After the war, he went to China and fought the communists. A guy that's would have given his life for this country. And we're just going to throw it all away. So please pray for our country.
Every day. Absolutely. Congressman, I know you're busy. You got a lot going on, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I really do. Enjoy your time here this week out of session. Go build you some cool things and write some cool shows. Post on your X account. I want to hear about this stuff.
Actually, I came home because we got donkeys that had escaped. So I'm trying to. I need to be back working, but I got to get. I love those crazy animals. They're fun.
All right. Well, I will let you go. I appreciate your time.
Brother.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that concludes my show for this week. Once again, I want to thank Congressman Tim Burchett for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure. Please be sure to like and follow my show on all my socials, X, Facebook, Truth Social, or you can email me at thepppodcast@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode. And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.